I think I have noticed an actual benefit from having this vine trying to devour my house. I have very open landscape outside in that direction, and that means that winds slam my house really hard. And this vine seems to be kind of, I don't know if it's blocking it, but it's kind of diffusing the winds, I believe, because with the weather we've been having, it's not as bad now as it was earlier today. It's been torrent of rain and high winds, very horrible weather. And with that weather, it should be colder in here. But I think that the wind doesn't press as hard against the windows here as it did back when before the vine was there. So I guess there's something positive about it. But that's my minute of ranting. I'd like to get back to some genre stuff, and the genre I thought I'd get into is very much inspired by the whole intrigue um, debate or intrigue rant, you might call it, that I've been having here with all the intrigue maps and stuff like that. And that genre is espionage. Espionage is technically a plot genre. It does have a bit of world genre in it, but that's mainly because there are some periods or places or times and places throughout history that are more fitted to espionage, to spy stories than others. And the Queen Bee tends to be the Cold War because espionage during the Cold War was apparently insane, and it has very interesting, clearly defined sides. A lot of franchises based on spy stories have been struggling to really find their own identity after the end of the Cold War, but at this point they more or less have. And the reason that the intrigue angle is so powerful is that espionage is very much about um, betrayal and lies and corruption and how things are tied together. Even when it's mostly action packed, the action is excused with how things are connected and hunting down certain persons or the like, rather than having a clear goal ahead. So, intrigue tends to play a role, an important role, in espionage stories. It doesn't have to be high intrigue, it doesn't have to be extremely complicated. Some basic intrigue can be perfectly fine as an excuse for the story to get on the way. But intrigue tends to be the path of a story in espionage tends to follow some kind of intrigue map, going from one connected character, place, or object to another, to the point that, as far as I know, the term MacGuffin was coined by Alfred Hitchcock in relation to spy stories. A MacGuffin being something that is in the story and is not important to the story at all, except for the fact that everybody wants it. There's no other role for this thing to play, and the classic example is a microfilm in a spy story that everybody wants. It's You don't really have any advantages from having it. It's not useful to anyone, but it's what everybody wants. So it's what gets the story going. And modern espionage stories have gone more from the identifiable enemy um, that existed in the Cold War to a murky wheels within wheels and corruption and betrayal angle that often ends up in, I wouldn't say it's cliche, but it's a very common trope of being betrayed by your own agency. You see that in successful series like the Bourne series, Jason Bourne, and very much also Mission Impossible, where I think more than the half the movies deal with a villain that is either connected to or actually a part of the the organization that's supposedly running the good guys. The bosses of the good guys tend to be, one or more of them tend to be bad guys in disguise. So yeah, betrayal is a big, is a very big part of it. All in all, espionage is a genre that is often very reactive. It's rare for espionage be to have the main characters be the ones who want something. Main characters rarely have any motives other than their their job as spies or whatever their task is. It doesn't mean that everything is a mission. A lot of the reactionary stuff is that something goes wrong, or they get pulled into some kind of spy goings on, like having someone accidentally slip them the MacGuffin or anything else, or being mistaken for someone involved in something, or simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But a lot of the stuff when it's not accidental is also reactionary. Something has gone wrong, and now a problem needs to be fixed, or something, an opportunity has popped up, and now that opportunity needs to be exploited, and in comes the main characters to do this. Other genres can also be very reactionary, um, but many genres also build on the initiative of the main characters to actually do something, to actually want something. In espionage, it's very common for main characters to simply want to pull off the mission, even if that mission is dumped in their laps somehow. And reactionary storytelling relies a lot on the world around the main characters to push them. And that is the case whether or not it is action or any other genre that you wouldn't usually expect main characters having to be pushed. If you got an action genre, main characters usually have a goal that or an action story, main characters usually have a goal that they want to complete. But in espionage, that goal is usually to resolve a situation pushed on the main characters. They may be in danger. They may have to do something to prevent bad guys from carrying out plans that aren't even related to the main characters. That's another part of it. Espionage how do I put this? Espionage can have very indirect goals. The goals need not, or very impersonal goals, I should probably say. Goals need not be directly aimed at the main characters. They may be they may be helping their agency get a foot in the door somewhere. They may be trying to get some people out of harm's way. They may be trying to cover up a secret that could hurt a lot of people if it gets out. They don't need to be actually targeted themselves or benefit themselves from the story. Espionage is usually about larger, the bigger picture, about larger things in motion. Even if it's not high intrigue, even if the intrigue is very low, it's usually about bigger things. It's not about direct personal things, although that can play into it. It's perfectly possible to make espionage about a personal matter, especially if it's a more drama oriented espionage story, where it's a lot about how the main character is dealing with the situation. But the situation in general tends to be something in the bigger picture of things. It's not about the main character getting wealth. It's not about the main character wanting something for themselves. Can be, but it's usually not. It's not even directly, usually not even directly, about the main characters being in danger. Yes, the main characters may be in danger, but that's usually a byproduct of something happening in in the bigger picture. This means that most espionage stories have kind of two layers to them. Uh, and this is not uncommon, but it's often more profound in espionage. On the one hand, you have the story in the bigger picture about who's threatening who, what organizations are at each other's throats, and so on. And you've got the smaller picture story, the immediate things happening to the main characters, and a lot of the more interesting and original espionage stories kind of play with that a lot in how the bigger picture is tied to or is not tied to what's happening in the smaller picture. You could have a big picture story that is about the nuclear threat of a terrorist organization, while the smaller picture story is about the main character's relation to someone they crossed paths with a long time ago, who suddenly showed up again for some reason. These two things need not be closely connected, but playing with any connection that there is or is not often makes for a very, very interesting story on top of the story itself. So there's the bigger picture story, there's the smaller picture story, and then there's the story of how those two things are related. Did the person show up because of the terrorist threat, or was the person just casually involved in something connected to it, and that's why they crossed paths again? How is the person involved, and what is the person's involvement going to do to affect the main character? The fact that espionage is so much about betrayal and lies and deception and so on also means that it's hard to be sure of what any of those relations really are. So the average, or the average, that's not the right word to use, um, a well crafted espionage story will usually include a bigger picture story of factions or powerful people threatening each other or wanting to exploit situations, and a smaller, more personal story regarding the main characters and something that they are emotionally involved with, and the story of how those two things may be related, with a lot of questions showing up, um, a lot of uncertainty, perhaps even lies right out the gate, and so on. A lot of misdirection is common, or teasing things that turn out to be not entirely wrong, but not entirely right either. Espionage operates very much in the gray zone. Things are rarely black and white. If they are black and white, it tends to the espionage part tends to be just an excuse for some standard action story to unfold.